Well, welcome to another HeadHunters Northwest podcast. I'm really, I don't know. I just like all the people that come on here. Of course, I like to have people on to visit with that I like, but David's really fun. And this is such an honor to introduce our listeners. And a lot of you already know David Golladay. David has been working in our industry and in advertising and marketing for many years. But I asked David to join me because he really is such a treasure and he has so much value to offer our industry. And I would just say this before I let you talk, David, is that anyone at the end of this podcast who wants to get a hold of David and says, I need that help with my marketing, or I need to talk to him about this promo, or you guys need to reach out to David because he is definitely someone that I would bring on to help my company with anything to do with the firearms industry. If only I were a firearms manufacturer, I would have even cooler stories like David. So welcome, David. Thank you for joining the podcast. And I would love it if you could just kind of start the podcast with telling everyone a little bit about your background so they know where you're coming from. And then we do need to talk about those pictures behind you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Shailene, let me say that I had the great honor of meeting you at the last NSSF leadership conference just a couple months ago.
That's right.
And what you're doing is really quite revolutionary, I think, for this industry. And that is taking a whole different approach to recruitment that I think is much needed in this marketplace. And it starts by focusing on the people and understanding the value of those people and how to communicate that and get the message out there that, that we are good people. And there are just some tremendous people in this industry. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But as far as, I started off my career working for a New York ad agency on the McDonald's business, McDonald's and Domino's Pizza, and went that whole route. But that was great training. I mean, obviously, because ROI is, we had to validate every single budget that we spent, not only on a monthly or a quarterly basis, but almost on a daily basis. And so it was a great training ground for me. But early on in my career, I kind of realized that I really wanted to work on brands that meant something to me, that were part of my lifestyle. And that, it was great to have a training program where you learn how to do it by some of the bigger brands in the consumer market, but it's not as it's not as fulfilling.
That was the word I was thinking.
Yeah, as working on products that you use, working and selling to a market that you understand, and that's critical. So I took a leap of faith and rolled in and got a advertising sales rep position at Game and Fish Publications. Before they sold to OSG, they were at the time, had the individual state concept of where to fish and hunt locally, and that is really where I got my first exposure to the industry. But what really caused me to want to go that route was, and I have to thank my father and my grandfather and all my dad's hunting and fishing friends that I grew up with, where fishing and hunting and all of that was part of my lifestyle. It was my motivation. As a matter of fact, if my grades were good and the fish were hitting, I could take the day off work or take the day off school. For the opener of pheasant season, for the opener of deer hunting season, for the opener of turkey hunting season. If my grades were good, I was able to take the day off and enjoy the opener with my dad and his hunting buddies. So that instilled in me, a great love of the outdoors, a great love of shooting and hunting and fishing. And, so I guess that is really what kind of set the stage for where I eventually
special. You got to take that then and wrap it into your work life, right?
Exactly. And again, I think you hear the adage of, the job that I've been doing, I really can't call it work because you enjoy it so much, and you're selling to people that you understand. You're marketing products that that meet a need, that help people to
Mhm.
become better shooters, better hunters, better
Yep.
fishermen. And that's a great place to be. But
And
anyway,
you've
I
been
was
able to parlay that with several different well-known manufacturers,
absolutely.
advertising agencies, and then you've even, through all your work through marketing for them, you have had the pleasure of meeting a few movie stars and maybe and a president, at least one, right?
Absolutely. When we introduced the Colt 22, when I managed the Colt firearms business, um, uh, one of our sales, the director of sales was on a flight and met Jimmy Carter,
Wow.
and so he struck up a conversation with him, and as he found out was that he was an avid shooter. He owned guns, and so I think he was really a great guy so we offered him, and we made a special Colt 22 with the presidential seal, and
Wow,
went down to
that's really
Georgia.
special.
Went down to and I lived in Atlanta at the time, and so we went over to the Carter Center, and he graciously hosted us. And normally, you would think in a situation like that they would just bring you in, grip and grin, and throw you out the door. But he sat with us for probably an hour and a half, just
Wow.
talking about everything. And it was just what a wonderful human being he is. And it was a great experience back in the day, I can tell you.
I think with the in my experience, and it's not nearly as vast as yours in a different realm. I don't get to do any marketing, probably good too, because as you can see, everything here is red, white, and blue or brown because I don't have a lot of color choices. Um, I think it is really unique with the firearms industry because it's not all just tactical. It's
No,
shooting sports encompasses a lot of people, and they aren't necessarily all of one political mindset.
not at all.
There's plenty of people who are politically liberal, independent, conservative, maybe don't even care about politics. And I think that it would be nice if we could go back to a time where it's just to enjoy each other's company and enjoy this sport and enjoy the freedoms that we do have. And that can mean anything with the firearms industry. There's so many little niches inside of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's having grown up in that environment. I mean, I remember before I had my hunter safety course, I was pheasant hunting with a BB gun. Just so you would,
Is that right?
oh yes. I mean, so these are the kind of things that I think we've lost in this country, and I think it's something that we have to continually, our job as marketing in this industry is the same thing that you're doing. We're constantly recruiting. I mean, the
Yeah.
biggest challenge we have
Yeah.
is recruiting more people to the shooting sports and to the hunting and fishing. I mean,
Yep.
it's a
What?
you're not just selling product, you're also selling the lifestyle, which
Yes.
is critically important.
So it's kind of you have seen a lot of changes, I'll bet. And we didn't talk about this beforehand. And if maybe I'm just curious. So as the firearms industry has matured and grows, what changes are you seeing that are very positive for the industry when it comes to marketing? Because marketing to me is one of the most dynamic parts of any industry right now, because how can you even keep up fast enough? It's so changing so quickly.
Absolutely. And people say of my generation, and I came into this business the same kind of time frame as Chris Dolnack and some of my other friends in the industry, and they say, well, you don't know how to deal with social. I said, well, we were dealing with social media before social media was even a thing, and I built some of the first websites in this industry, and so
Yeah.
while I'm going to be able to find someone that's going
Yeah.
to be able to implement whatever that is, but I don't need to be, and now with influencers and the whole way, we've always been a market of influencers. There's always been the pro staffs, the people that are the leaders in whatever the application of that product is that you use to enhance, law enforcement, for instance, has been a big influencer for handguns and other things that
Yeah.
and Glock, they made a hell of a business out of
Yeah.
first they fired us, then they hired us. I mean, I remember that campaign back in now I'm really dating myself, but I mean, that was a brilliant strategy, a
Yeah.
strategy that said, you know what, if you're going to have a handgun, why not have a handgun that these departments are using? So
I don't think that marketing, though, goes out of style. Like,
no,
what used to be in then is cast aside for what's new. And now what's old is new again. I think it's just history repeating itself. And, I mean, I just don't, you look at all kinds of advertising. I mean, there's all kinds of companies with different images inside of our niche. And you must be able to look at things and say, this is what's working now. This isn't working now. Here's what we could do. How do you as a marketing professional go in and even look at some of these companies? To me, it's overwhelming because I don't do my own marketing. God forbid. I only know how to be a recruiter.
I think you sell yourself short, Shailene. What you're putting together is everyone's. I think that marketing is probably the most overused and least understood terminology.
Oh,
Marketing is
yeah.
everything you do to bring a product from an idea, a white sheet of paper, to a purchase by a consumer. And everyone is involved in marketing, whether it
I
be
hadn't thought
your
about it that
accounting
way, but
people,
you're
whether it
right.
be your logistics people,
Yeah.
your customer service people, whoever answers the phone. I mean, everyone is involved in marketing, and
Yeah.
part of the challenge as a marketing person is that you've got to be able to communicate clearly, not only to your customers and your prospects, but also internally to everyone that works for the organization,
Right.
that they understand what their role is in terms of perpetuating whatever that brand position is for
Yeah.
the company, and they do play an important role. I don't, everyone does, and I think all too often we lose sight of that and think, well, marketing is just in this one little silo, and it's everything you do.
Yeah. It touches everything. You're right. I hadn't thought about it that way. And it does seem like the internal customers actually need more or just as much
Absolutely, and
training as you're training your potential customers to tell them here it is, what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's why, you might want to know about this. Yeah.
yeah, and for the last 9 years, I've been managing the LWRCI brand, and when we came in, I mean, one of the biggest challenges we had was when you go into a gun store, every single AR looks like every other single AR. It's hard to differentiate, and so really the biggest challenge that we had was in training our dealers, our reps,
Mm-hmm.
how to sell high end, and a lot of times it's all about price point. And part of the training was that you got to understand that no matter what market you're in, you're always going to have that percentage of that market that wants the best, has the ability to pay for the best. So you really ought to have that option available to your customers, and not just constantly be selling on price. The two great
Yeah.
motivators, you know what the two great motivators and everything is? Hope of gain and fear of loss. And I
Oh,
think that's kind of what happened to us in 2017, when the Trump slump hit,
yeah.
because before that we had 8 years of Democratic rule, and there was always that fear of possible legislation, which we still have today.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is that dealers and distributors, they're managing those two motivations.
Yeah.
And there was that fear of loss that caused them to overextend. I mean, in 2016 at NESGW, we sold everything we possibly could sell.
Wow.
And so what happened in 2016, the outcome was different than everybody had thought, and so everybody was sitting on tons of inventory. So what
Yep.
does that do?
Well,
So
it
then,
drives it.
So fear of loss and also a little bit of hope of gain, thinking I'm going to sell all this through.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the teams that I've dealt with throughout the years, no matter who is in charge, every 4 years it's an election year, and normally that spurs demand somewhat. But you have to have a plan based on each outcome.
Yeah.
And we had a plan for whoever was in office, and you have to. That's an easy thing.
So
Quite honestly.
when you're planning all of this, because you're working with leadership, sales, everybody, marketing,
Yeah.
as you well put, touches everything. You guys are really planning. If it goes this way, the election goes this way, here's our plan. If it goes this way, it's okay. That's good to know.
And we keep talking about how things are constantly changing, but the more they change, the more they stay the same. I
Yeah.
mean, if you looked historically, and I can look at it over the last 25 years that I've been in this business, but the cycles are the same. And
Yeah.
what's critical is that you just can't let anything get to you, because it's very easy to just roll up tent when things go bad. But it's
Yeah.
being even keel with it, and managing, what I say, managing through the dips. You got to manage through the dips,
Yeah.
and have a plan in place to be able to maintain your brand identity, your brand position, no matter what the market condition is.
Yeah.
And that is so critical.
Yeah.
I can't say enough. But the cycles are the same. I mean, you can go back and look at the cycles are the same, no matter how much social media and the I guess the methods of marketing have changed quite substantially, obviously. But what hasn't changed are the cycles.
Yeah.
And if you understand that, it's a little bit easier to come up with strategic plans to do what I say, manage through those dips, manage through those downturns in the market.
This too shall pass, no matter whether it's good or bad.
I actually had this written down. That you just said it, Shailene. That's exactly what I had. One of the things.
It's true. I mean, I look at my recruiting business and I just say, okay, this is how our business goes. But for us, it's always building and building. And, in my line of work, I always think of those times when there's a dip. It's a great chance to build relationships. It's a great chance to update our website. What else could we do to serve our customers? Are there other services we could offer? And it's not about the bottom line today. It's about investing in helping them solve their problems.
Yeah. And that's, you just said something there too, that really resonated with me, and that is service.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have a servant's mentality. And I can tell you right now, there are so many people in this industry. And I can tell you some stories that are just, are unbelievable. The people that come out of the woodwork when things are bad, and it's just really unbelievable. But as a brand, you've got to maintain that service mentality of understanding that, at the end of the day, I've got to take care of my customer. And like we've talked about the kind of it's exploded in terms of the influencers and the podcasters and the bloggers and all that. And that's, we've got to be able to embrace some of and some of them are really doing a great job of driving product and driving awareness. But you got to mix that in with some of the legacy type things that you should do. But
yeah, I don't know. I don't think that there's some organizations that are well known for their I forget what it's called. You know what it's called, but the paper marketing, if you will.
Oh, like
like Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, right?
Right.
And Safe Foundation, and a lot of them are well known for their marketing in the paper form. They get their mailer and their sweepstakes, right? And it would be great to be able to say, oh, print is no good. But, even I use print, and I use print for thank you notes, because how many times do you get a handwritten thank you note in the mail anymore?
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
And I think you can take your skill set and just get help. I mean, like, for instance, you help a lot of different companies with a lot of different areas. It doesn't have to be one dimensional.
No,
and
doesn't.
I mean, like our company, we don't just get help from one area. I can't possibly do that. I don't know how to do all those things. And I think I've seen our firearms industry really coming around with, they're embracing a lot of different types of marketing, a lot of different types of advertising, and trying new things. And when it doesn't work, it's okay, move on. Not everything's going to work.
And the thing is that, yeah, I mean, what was the old adage was 50% of only 50% of my advertising works, but I don't know which 50% it is. But today, with the metrics and the way to measure ROI, with
Right.
some of it's a little bit easier to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's
you just have to
amazing
be able
how
to
we can measure things now, even in marketing, which to me seems still very hard to measure. You can measure it. It's like the you mentioned the NSSF Leadership Marketing and Leadership Summit.
the best. I
What?
mean, what
Yeah,
what Chris has done with that organization, and he brings in not just industry thinkers. He brings in people that cause you and force you to think about things from a general marketing perspective and a leadership perspective. And it really is one of the best programs out there, from my perspective.
it
I've learned so
absolutely
much.
is. I mean, we're already planning for next year, and it's just the networking there. Matter of fact, I met a gal there at this summit that didn't know anyone when she walked in, and she happened to sit down at a table full of our recruiters.
Oh
And of
boy.
course, we'll
Uh-oh.
talk to anybody.
Uh-oh. Sure.
So we had a great time, and I just saw her again at the Import Export
There
Summit
you
and
go.
or conference, and it's great because they bring a lot of new people into the industry and help educate. And that leadership and marketing summit is absolutely worth attending, I think, for just about
100%.
any leadership from any company, including marketing, but not just limited to marketing.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Well, tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days and what you're looking for. You're kind of branching out, are you, and offering some consulting and
that's kind of, that's part of what the problem was. Like I said, I mean, we kind of knew. I mean, we've had two what I would call unicorn years,
yeah,
where demand was outpaced, four times demand what a normal year would be,
yeah,
and we rolled back into one of those type of scenarios where the summer months are exactly how they used to be.
yeah,
And I think what happens is that companies somehow get a little bit complacent.
mhm,
They realize, and we've been talking about this for 18 months, knowing that this unicorn market condition is going to go away, and we are going to, and the things that you have to do to manage through that dip is
yeah,
either new product
yeah,
or
yeah,
promotion.
yeah,
And if you're not willing to invest in either of those, it's going to be a hard slog, I can tell you that. But
yeah.
that's critical. So new product is the lifeblood of this business, and you've got to invest there, and you've got to invest in your brand, no matter what the market condition is.
Well, listen, I mean, I think when we first talked, I don't know, a week or so ago, I thought it was really interesting. You'd brought up McDonald's, and I think the example was even McDonald's
Right.
advertises. It doesn't matter how well known you think you are. I
That's right.
mean, McDonald's advertises because they're always looking for more customers. They're always reminding you they're there. So if
100%.
McDonald's has to
100%.
advertise, the rest of us do.
Well, and it's just you shouldn't look at it. You know what I have always said is you can't look at it like it's like you paint the fence and okay, I'm done for 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a continuous thing. I mean, the Golden Gate Bridge is painted, and as soon as they get done painting it, they're painting it again. So
Oh,
it's something
yeah,
that it's a continuous thing, and it's some of the most successful brands in this space are the brands that understand consistency and
yeah,
branding and keeping their name out there, so that they are constantly in the consideration set. You've really you've got to maintain it. You've got to keep the lights on. I mean, and then if you turn the lights out, and then you're going to go back 3 or 4 years later, it's not just turning the light switch back on. You got to rewire the whole thing because you've
yeah,
lost all of that momentum and all of
yeah.
that detail. So, um,
It's definitely worth investing in. I think that you can bring people in from outside our industry into marketing. But I think if you do that, it is important you have someone on your team or more than one person that does know the industry, because just like with any other industry, we have our cycles, and we have certain audiences that are unique at different times of the year. The buy groups, We have different times of the year you have to plan for. And I just think with marketing, it can be very difficult to come
navigate
into
through.
this
Yeah.
and not have this experience.
Yeah. And it's, and I've seen it. I mean, when I was at Colt, we saw 4 different presidents come through there, and I worked with them. And sometimes they came from outside the industry, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But primarily, it's that this is a different beast, and that you have to understand that things are done a little bit differently, and they have to, because everything is so driven by politics these days.
Yeah.
That, fear of loss, fear of legislation, fear of all that. And if you're relying on that to drive your demand,
Hard
you're
to control it if it's the tail wagging
100%
the
hard to
dog.
control. But what you can control is understanding your target market, understanding who you're selling to, understanding what their motivations are, and creating and building product that meets those demands, and helps them to become a better shooter, a better hunter, a better fisherman. So it's all about new product and communication, and it all works together. It's all interconnected. It's not, and that's why it's so critical, I think, for companies to understand the connection points between that. I mean, I've done several seminars or several processes with sales teams where, and I coined this from Rick DeMilt, who was a guy that I worked with at FN. And what's funny is FN, when I first started with them, I was with an ad agency in Milwaukee, and they had a 10 by 20 booth. And now you look at them, and I'm not saying that I had everything to do with it, but I can tell you I was in the room where we whiteboarded the business out, and I can tell you that and it was very difficult because FN at the time didn't really want to get into the black gun market, even though they were a leading supplier of military small arms. So it was very difficult. It was a lot of cajoling and understanding how we could get them to accept the fact that there was some great opportunities here. And then 9/11 happened, and then obviously the whole tactical world blew up. But
that is interesting. Now before we end this thing, I want to talk about those pictures behind you. So if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple iTunes or something, you should go to the YouTube version, because behind David are some pictures of some very famous people. So run us through that. You told me a little bit about a couple of those.
Well, the guy right up there, that's Chuck Norris, who when I was at Colt, I worked with a lot of Hollywood armors, and we supplied all the single actions and the guns for his production there. We also did all the guns for Wyatt Earp and for Tombstone, and so it was really fun. Yeah,
that's really cool.
And they're all they're so appreciative. As a matter of fact, I just finished something with a Hollywood armor but they're all on strike now, so who knows what's going on. And it's also interesting, you get a really good perspective from those guys, and what happened with the Alec Baldwin situation, and how they tried to cut corners, and you really can't cut corners when it comes to safety. And that's the thing about this industry too, is the fact that there is absolutely safety is always, and I've done so many shoots and so many range events, and where thousands and thousands of rounds are sent down range, and not one mishap, not one situation, because safety is always first. And it's critical to that.
It is. It's an amazing industry, and I appreciate you sharing with us your experience and visiting with me on this podcast. Now, if people want to get a hold of you and run some marketing ideas by you, or companies that are looking for some help, they could find you on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Right?
Sure can.
And we could put that link as an attachment here on our podcast, on our website, or on YouTube. Is there any other way that you want them to reach you? Do you want them to reach out on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is fine. LinkedIn is great. And like I said, I mean, I've got the the experience as an agency guy, so I understand how to run creative and get the best creative ideas. I also have the P&L responsibility of making sure that the brands that I manage are profitable. So anything marketing, sales, I mean, I'd be glad to talk to you. And
you're really well-rounded. Your background is really well-rounded, and you have a lot of experience. It's really nice to find someone trustworthy to give out ideas and let the companies pick their best solutions. And that's what I think is a lot of value. Now, before we sign off, I wanted to ask you, tell me about what your favorite firearm is.
I'm glad you asked that question. It's probably number one would be the 20 gauge that I got for my first pheasant hunting. It was circa 1962, back when Ithaca was still made in New York. I think they've got a factory now in Ohio or something, but it was a 20 gauge that I, it was my first shotgun, and that
really special.
Yeah, it was really special. And then the other thing would be the Colt 22, or the Colt single action army we got as part of the team that introduced the Quality Makes It a Colt campaign back in the 90s, which I'm dating myself again, but those are the two I would think are
really special.
Two of my favorite firearms that I have.
I think that one thing that most of us share is that it's not just a job, it's who we are, and
Absolutely.
These are our friends, and we love these things. They mean something to us. You look at, I bet, your Colt firearm that you described, and it means something. It has memories. Mine, I have a few up here that they mean something to me. And I'm a buyer of the products of the companies that I work for because it's special to me. The people that I care about work there. And right. I think, and they make these products, and so I think it's a very special industry that someone who loves it and is as passionate about it as 100%. I am. You can't go wrong with a marketing person that eats and breathes this stuff.
Well, and like I said, I mean, I would rather be selling a firearm or a trolling motor than selling a double large Domino's pizza.
That's right.
Or a Big Mac.
That's
even
right.
though that was great fun doing that, but
now you're in an industry that you love and products you love.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, David.
And the people are the best.
Oh, they are. The best. They really are. Thank you, David, for being our guest on the podcast. And that'll wrap it up for us. This recording, we look forward to sharing more information and more introductions on our next podcast. That's it for HeadHunters Northwest.
Thank you, Shailene.
Thank you, David.